Hey, so I recently went through all the semiconductor stocks on my portfolio watch list. After doing so, I ended up choosing two that I think are going to be the best buys, at least right now, till year end. It's going to be these top two. We have ticker symbol AEHR and AMD. These two, right now for AEHR, I forget what the acronym here is, but AEHR, I'm projecting, at least right now, that they could potentially see 25 to 83% growth by year end. And we'll go into how I kind of drew out that range. And then for AMD, we have a potential 2% gain all the way up to 37%. All the others just didn't see much potential in terms of between now and the year end. And so I, I guess before I get ahead of myself, I'll explain this spreadsheet. And of course, as I'm doing this, if you have any questions about it, feel free to uh, leave them in the comments. Or if you disagree with a price point that I'm picking, by all means, let me know, and maybe we can modify it as time goes by. But right now, this is how I'm seeing it. Um, so we have the stock here. The current price is in column D. I have these buy points in E, resistance for F. Uh, my potential low is in column G, potential high is in column H, and then the percentage return that would be if you were to buy that stock right now and it would hit the low point of my range versus the high point. So I I guess right now let's just look at AEHR. So we have it up here on the screen right now. So I picked this range between 30 and 44. That's this grayed out box here. And this is right on year end for 2023. Currently, we're down here, right at what I'm considering a fair value point. But the reason I chose this range is because this one seems to be locked in a decent uptrend. It's been that way for closing in on a year now. It has pulled back significantly in terms of its own pricing, but I think this one has potential to get into this range again. I feel like this is a newer company, and so with that comes tremendous growth potential. And again, this one's very new to me, so as time passes and I get more familiar with them, I can probably narrow in on what I think is a better price. But for now, we're keeping it at this point because number one, it's in this uptrend. They're in the semiconductor market, which is meant to grow rapidly over the next 5 to 10 years, really, potentially even further out. But the next 5 to 10 years, there should be a lot of growth. This company's very small, so again, lots of room for them to grow. I think we'll just see how it goes, but that's pretty much the thesis here. Small company, great chance to grow in this uptrend for almost a year, and I feel like this is a decent range. I I could have pulled it back down to what I consider currently to be the fair value, but given this one's uptrend, I feel like they have a higher probability of coming into here, possibly reaching all-time highs. But that's just my opinion. We'll see how it shakes out. The plan is to hopefully circle back on this in a month and adjust it, see if we can get it closer to a more just a better price, and of course we can go back to see how things have changed. My second stock here, we have AMD. AMD's similar in the fact that it's been in an uptrend since about October of 2022. Right now, it's at the low end of that uptrend. I think this one, in the past, it's been above 160. This uptrend is very promising. If we were to scale that uptrend out, uh, this lower end would probably meet about the top. I feel like that's a little too much growth in something like this at this point right now. It is expected to kind of pick up in terms of the semiconductor sales in second half 2023. Of course, we need to actually see it before we can know for sure, but that's kind of the sentiment, is that it's meant to pick up. So if it's growing like this now, once we get results, hopefully we'll see it continue to grow. But for right now, in the short term, also, I do have these fair value point marked at 84 and resistance at 100. We'll see how this plays out. It looks like just recently it's come close to 100 and immediately got rejected, and now we're closing in to what I would consider the fair value point. However, we're still in that uptrend. It hasn't broken yet. So again, we'll see how this shakes out. But that's pretty much the thinking here, is the uptrend, very similar to AEHR. It's in an uptrend. I think, again, AMD, they're not the smallest company anymore, but there's always growth, especially in this industry. So I do think this uptrend can continue. However, just thinking more conservatively, I think this range is likely, and I wanted to keep some area of likelihood below this $100 value mark, just because it's had resistance there before, and potentially we could see it just chop sideways for the rest of the year. But I think it would be closer to the $100 side as opposed to the $84 side. So that's kind of the thinking behind this. If you have a different opinion, by all means, let me know. I'd be very interested to hear that. But going back to this chart, I think the one thing that I want to point out is, number one, these are just year-end projections. And so I want to point out the color coding here. So these green, those right now, whenever I'm looking long-term, like past December, we're talking like a year or two down the road, I feel like these stocks, we have AEHR is still on the list, but now more in the long term, I think Qualcomm is at a decent price. Again, you can see the buy points that I marked out here of points of interest for me. So it's currently in that range, less than 123, which was a buy point, but above 105. So it's right in that range, decent price. Going back to AEHR, it's currently around 24. I had that as a buy point. Intel, it's at 31. I had a buy point marked out at 30. So I feel like that's a good one for long term. And then TSM is at 84 with a buy point marked at 88. This one's a little funky just because of the whole China thing. It depends on how much risk you want to take on a stock like that. And then, of course, we have in orange, this is like close to a move. You can see it's at 89, and I had a buy point of 84. And then the reds, 64 for Micron, that's almost like hitting a resistance point. NVIDIA's at 277. NVIDIA's grown very rapidly, and I think it needs to pull back a little bit before I would want to get in there. So I have 228, which seems far, but NVIDIA moves very fast, so I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. And ASML, I think that one's going to pull back. If we look over here, I'm even projecting by the end of the year that it's going to pull back pretty good. So again, if you disagree with these or want to add to the discussion, feel free. I'm still kind of new at this, learning this, but this is just how I see it. But I wanted to give those both sides here. The fact that we're focusing, at least on this video, for year-end results, and so that's this column, these two columns, column I and J, and in terms of price points, that's G and H, which correlate to I and J. But we also have the second point, which is the long-term approach, which when we're looking long-term, that's where the color coordination comes in. And that's where these buy points and resistance points, that's where those come in. So I would say, again, short term, by the year end, we're focusing on G through J columns. Long term, we're thinking more B through F and comparing it that way. But that pretty much wraps this one up. If you want to add something to this, please feel free to leave something down in the comments, and I'd be happy to read that. But otherwise, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.